Hi, it's Sam. In this video, we're going to look at adding amplitude and panning modulation to our additive synth. Now, last time we added the pitch modulation, and I think a good practice that I didn't follow was to add a load mess or loading a message when the patch opens to whatever objects are not going to be initialized, but that impact the functionality of the patch. So here I want to make sure I do have the 1 typed in MC selector, so that should mean that the first inlet's going to be open by default. But just to make sure that everything's working properly, I'm just going to kind of be more explicit about things and add this load mess 0 to the toggles to make sure that these are off and that message is sent to the respective objects. And also I'm going to add a load mess to the frequency and depth here so that these are also going to be initialized. So I think that's probably a good practice, especially if you don't have a typed in argument that is setting the default value of the object. So let's start off by looking at the amplitude modulation, and we're going to add that here. And we're going to have to scale the signal with MC multiplication. Let's plug that in here. And for this, I want to either have each harmonic on or off, multiply by 0 or 1. And to do that, I can use the decide message. This is another MC MC exclusive, MC specific message. And first you say the probability. I'm going to say the probability is 50%, 0.5, because it goes 0 to 1. And when it's chosen, I want the value to be 1. So decide is going to generate random on-off values. So the on value I want to be 1, and there's a 50% chance of that occurring. And the off value is going to be 0, that you can't control that. So from here, let's actually visualize this with MC meter. Now when I click here, you can see that some of the harmonics will now be off or multiplied by 0, and others will be multiplied by 1 and they'll be unaffected. But I don't want my fundamental frequency to be off. I want that to be strong and present. So what I can do is use apply values, actually, with an S. And I'll say channel 1. And channel 1, I want to be the value of 1, so it's multiplied by 1. Now when I click on that, oops, for some reason that changed both the first and second. That's strange. I don't know why I did that. Is that going to happen? Yeah, why is that happening? It should only be applied. Oh, you know what? It's because I'm using apply values. Okay, so apply values is like a list where I could do 0, 0.5, 0. I don't know, 8, 7, 8. And now it'll apply that to each channel. So this would be channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. What I want is set value. So this is going to be set value. I want a set value of channel 1 to be 1. So now this should work as I expected it to. Okay, great. So now these are on or off. And then I can use this after I use decide, I can then make sure to set the value with the set value message. Okay, great. That's working correctly. Now I think something that would be nice would be every time I select a note, every time I press a key, I get a new timbre for the synthesizer by triggering this trigger bang bang to get new on-off values. So to do that, I can take the 0 or 1 that I get from here, and I'm going to add a root pass of 0 and 1. When it's 0, I can just pass through as 0. But when it's 1, I want to first bang the trigger up here. So I get new 0, 1 values, on-off values. Then I want to pass the integer in. So let's try that and see if we get some new timbres. So this is really nice. Now every time we click the key, we get a new sound. I could just keep clicking. That's nice. Okay. So now that we have that set up, let's look at how we can add some panning modulation. And to do that, we're going to use the MC mixdown that we already have added to our patch. And the right inlet here is what controls panning. Right now we just have this sig tilde of 0.5, which is sending, it's setting all of the harmonics to the center of the stereo field. What I want to do is randomize their position so that each harmonic has a different random panning position. So let's start off by getting rid of the sig, and let's make a subpatcher. I'll call this pan mod. And let's create an inlet and outlet here. The inlet will take a 0 or 1, and that will control the values sent to an MC sig, because this the MC mixdown is expecting a multi-channel signal to control the panning position. And we're going to need to have, actually I can set this as a 0.5 by default. And then I can say at chans 32. And we're going to send some value when it's 0, some messages when it's 1. And then we're going to send out. And these 32 values will control the position of each of the harmonics. So let's figure out what we're going to do with the select 0 and 1. When we get 0, it's going to be the random position is going to be off. So we can use the set value message. And when we use the argument 0, which would usually be where we put the channel index, 0 refers to every channel. So we can send some message to every channel, and I want to send the message of 0.5 so that they're all in the center when it's off. So that'll reset their position. And then when it's on, we actually have a random range that we can set. So if I give it the argument 0, 1, now I'll get a random number between 0 and 1 for each of the channels, and that'll give me a random pan position for each of the harmonics. Great, that seems to be working correctly. Now, I think like the amplitude, I want to keep the value of the first harmonic unchanged. So I'm going to leave this at the center just so that it's nice and clear and present. And so we'll have to do a similar technique here with our friend the trigger object. I'm going to first set all the random positions and then make sure that the first channel is in the center. Let's just make sure that's working. Great. All right. Now let's just hook this up. So we're going to put that into the right inlet and then make sure that the toggle goes to the inlet of our subpatcher, and we'll just make this labeled as random pan. And that should now work. Let's see if we get some random panning positions. Now when I turn it off, they should all be in the center again. Great, that seems to be working. So now we have added amplitude and panning modulation, as well as the pitch modulation we had before. And from here, you could add some additional features. You could add different types of waveforms to the LFO that we did for the pitch modulation. For instance, you could also add an LFO to the amplitude rather than the static values that I've chosen. Same thing for the panning. So I would encourage you to try that to extend the functionality of the modulation that we've added to this additive synthesizer. I hope you found this project useful. Like always, if you have any questions or need clarifications, have any issues with your patching, please let me know. And otherwise, until next time, class is dismissed.